Happy holidays from WinDailySports.com. I'm Jason Mizrahi, CEO and founder, and we're here for another week of daily fantasy football. We're going to get you ready for Week 17. And to start off, here's your quarterbacks. At quarterback, we're going to start off with Ryan Tannehill. This guy's been doing his thing ever since he got the starting job from Marcus Mariota, and he's got a solid floor for your cash games and your tournaments. He's averaging 20 points per game, and he's going against the Texans, who rank 31st against opposing quarterbacks. Now we're going to go with Carson Wentz, who's coming off 4 strong weeks and is battling for his playoff life. He's averaging 19 points per game, and he's in a must-win against the Giants, who rank 26th against opposing quarterbacks. Let's lock up Carson Wentz in Week 17 at your quarterback slot. Now it's time to hand it off to the Hall of Famer, Scott Engel, the king, with running backs.
Thanks a lot, Jason. I am Scott Engel. I am the king. I am fantasy, and I'm here with your DFS running backs for Week 17. At running back, let's start with Nick Chubb. He's coming off a down week, but now he'll come back with a big game as he's averaging 18 points per game in DFS, and the Bengals rank 25th against opposing running backs in terms of fantasy points per game. Also, Marlon Mack, who should keep it rolling after a good matchup last week, and he gets another plum draw this week. It's a solid floor for Mack this week. He had 100 yards rushing in his first matchup against the Jaguars this season, and Jacksonville ranks 28th against opposing running backs in terms of fantasy points per game allowed. There's your running backs from Week 17, and now let's run some routes at wide receiver with Jason Mizrahi.
Thanks, Scott. Now, here are the wide receivers you want to lock into your lineups for Week 17 on DraftKings and FanDuel. And don't forget to check out WinDailySports.com for cheat sheets of all your positional players. At wide receiver, we're going to pay up for Julio Jones. The guy's coming off 2 monster games, and I expect him to finish the season strong. He's averaging 19 points per game, and now he's got a cupcake matchup versus the Buccaneers, who rank 32nd against opposing wide receivers. That's league worst. So let's go ahead and grab Julio Jones. At our second wide receiver slot, we're going to lock in John Brown. The guy has high upside for tournaments, and he will be low owned in Week 17. He's averaging 15 points per game. He has 1,000-yard receiving on the season, and he's going against the Jets, who rank 23rd against opposing wide receivers. So let's lock up John Brown in a big game against the Jets in Week 17. That was the wide receivers. Now I'm going to pass it back to Scott to give you a recap of all the picks from WinDailySports.com.
And to run everything down again for Week 17, a quarterback, we like Ryan Tannehill, playing in a big game for the Titans. Solid floor for cash games and tournaments, averaging 20 points per game, and the Texans rank 31st against opposing quarterbacks in terms of fantasy points per game. Carson Wentz, as the Eagles look to wrap things up in the NFC East, coming off 4 strong weeks, averaging 19 points per game, and the Giants rank 26th against opposing quarterbacks. At running back, Nick Chubb, coming at low ownership, should have a big game, averaging 18 points per game, and the Bengals rank 25th against opposing running backs. Marlon Mack, a solid floor with another great matchup 2 weeks in a row, had 100 yards rushing in his first matchup against Jacksonville. The Jaguars ranked 28th against opposing running backs. At wide receiver, Julio Jones, keep it up. He's coming off of 2 monster games, averaging 19 points per game overall. The Buccaneers rank last against opposing wide receivers in terms of fantasy points per game allowed. And John Brown, high upside for tournaments, averaging 15 points per game. The Jets rank 23rd against opposing wide receivers. Those are the guys you want to play for holiday cheer. Happy holidays from WinDailySports.com.